Welcome to the first day of fall. I'm Nick Kypreos. This is the Real Kyper at Noon show. So much to get into today. Doug MacLean on assignment. No, we didn't give him the chance to go golf again somewhere. That was a one-off for Doug MacLean. But we have Alan May, who's a great regular contributor here on the Real Kyper at Noon show, coming up in just a minute. And certainly we can dissect Tampa Bay's big win last night that evens the Stanley Cup Final at 1-1. We're also going to get into a little bit on the awards. Doug and I teed up who was eligible for the major awards. Now we get to look back and say yes or no. And of course, on our thumbnail, we had Leon Draisaitl, who took the double MVP sweep, which included the Hart and also the Ted Lindsay Award. And that one has really made its strides the last few years. Of course, prior to Ted Lindsay being named for this award by the NHL Players Association, it was known as the Lester B. Pearson Award, which I always found goofy because, you know, who names a major award after a Toronto International Airport? That was a joke. Alan, did you get that joke?
I caught it. I was wondering if you were going there.
Okay. Yeah. Listen, I don't play to be this great historian, but I do know enough to know that was a prime minister in the mid-'60s rather than naming of the airport. But you get my drift, Alan, because all of a sudden this award has gone from maybe even an afterthought to maybe the one that has the most emotional attachment to it, because it's not the writers that vote for it. It's your actual peers, the guys, as Mark Messier said on the awards show last night, that you go eyeball to eyeball, shoulder to shoulder on every given night.
Well, you know, I'm a big believer in that. And that to me is the most prestigious trophy because it is what the players honestly believe. And even though a lot of players only play against the opposition, half the league, you know, twice, you look at it and you definitely value what their opinions are. And, you know, it could be strong within one conference for a player over another on the opposite conference, but still you have to have a buy-in. And usually it's, you know, the top players in the league who are in that top 10 scoring. I look at, you know, another trophy I would love to see voted on by the players. I would love all the defensemen in the National Hockey League to vote on the Norris Trophy, because I think it would mean so much more and what they value. And you take all, you know, the little ticky-tack things out of it. I think it would be outstanding if you had players, and maybe not vote for someone on your team, but vote around the league. Would definitely be an incredible trophy to win for the players. But Leon Draisaitl getting that, no surprise. I was thinking that, you know, the Eastern Canadian kid, MacKinnon, would have got more votes, you know, some of the bias going over the German player. But Leon Draisaitl is not supposed to be this good. He wasn't drafted first overall. And what he's done since he's gotten in the league, he's just continually improved his skating. The physicality that he can play the game with offensively is incredible. And he and Connor McDavid are going to be so dangerous for the next decade. It's going to be incredible to watch.
We're going to break down Game 2 of the Stanley Cup Final, but you know, you brought up a little bit of a point here that I want to kind of expand a little bit on the awards show. And you mentioned something that was quite interesting about voting. You'd like to see other defensemen vote for the Norris, which I've never really thought about. And you know, it'd be great if we can get some of our watchers and listeners to comment on that. But I wonder now, and we do know that the majority of the awards, the major ones that we saw last night, go to the Professional Hockey Writers Association. And we know that there's as many as, 170, 180 members there. There's a lot of people voting here. And just prior to the last few years, Alan, nobody had to kind of declare or make public their nominees or their picks. And now that they have, it's lent much more to some scrutiny or accountability, whatever you want to say on them. And it got to the point where it was known in the last 24 hours that one writer didn't even have Draisaitl at all in the top 5. Now I'm sitting there going, that's just asinine. That's just crazy. Like, I can sit there and say first, second, third, Draisaitl, MacKinnon, Panarin, Pasternak, good players, great seasons. Yeah, through four, maybe shuffle it a little bit, but to not have Draisaitl at all in the top 5, don't you just sit there and go, okay, where are we going with this voting?
Well, exactly, and that's what makes it so great that it's a transparent vote now. Is that you can ridicule those people that go with that. Are they actually watching the games, going to the games? Should they have a vote? But you could get decimated for going after the Pro Hockey Writers Association as far as the online content that they'd throw at you. But I just find it laughable that there's no way that you'd have Draisaitl there. He is so dynamic when you see him in person, and even on the tube, you're watching on television. He's amazing, and every game he's a highlight reel with McDavid, and they're absolutely spectacular. I don't know how anyone couldn't have them on. And do you have that voters who was on his list? Because I saw Artemi Panarin first place on a few votes, and I thought he's done a great job for the New York Rangers, but people weren't talking about Panarin all season long like they were talking about all the other players, especially MacKinnon, McDavid, Draisaitl. McDavid with the injury, it cost him a while, but absolutely had to be Draisaitl and MacKinnon, your top 2 votes.
Well, and I think the argument when it comes to Draisaitl, and I don't know where you stand on all of this, but his defensive liabilities, that his numbers, of course, and now we're into the analytics, and yeah, this is something that you can look at for sure, but when you start breaking analytics down, I think there's an argument to be made anywhere on deficiency of any player. And I want to go back to Paul Beeston of the Toronto Blue Jays. Do you remember that famous quote he had where he said, I can turn a $4 million profit into a $2 million loss? And I think it kind of revolved around the CBA talks or whether or not baseball was on strike or not. But he made a very valid point as an accountant that you can take something on a positive and make it into a negative really quickly. And then he said that I can get every national accounting firm to agree with me. And that's the way I think analytics really is, Alan, when it comes down to you can look at anybody and break it down and find something that doesn't jive.
If you're looking for good, you find it. If you're looking for bad, you can find it. And, one of the big things I look at is, you just go back to goaltenders when you're talking about looking for problems. Now, if you're rating a goaltender just on a save percentage, I think it's absolutely wrong, because what kind of defenseman does he have in front of him? What type of structure within the team? So when you look at all of this, if you're looking for Leon Draisaitl's, deficiencies, I think every general manager in the league would say, I will take him right now. Just give him to me. I don't care what his salary is. I would want that guy on my top line, so on my team. So there's no way. If you're looking for holes in Draisaitl, you know what? Go ahead and have him. But I look at Wayne Gretzky. Did he have deficiencies in his game? If you're looking for those, but the uptick on him, the offensive side, the great things far outnumbered, the negatives. So there's no way that I would look at deficiencies with Leon Draisaitl. It's a team game when you look at it as far as how your structure is. That team does not have the roster for him to have great numbers in all different areas. And if they wanted to play a certain defensive style where they just didn't even try to go in on the offensive zone and just waited for a mistake to happen, then everyone would have a bad Corsi and a bad Fenwick and numbers like that if you just sat in your own zone and let the other team shoot the puck and fire away. So I look at Draisaitl. There's no way that he's not the best player in the league this past season.
Okay. I wasn't going to really get into all the awards before game 2, but we're on a bit of a roll here. So let's go to the Norris. No one watched John Carlson more than you. He seemed to have a little bit of an edge, I think, going into the final 3 with Hedman and Josi, yet he loses. As someone that's watched him day in, day out, did that surprise you that he lost to Josi?
Well, I thought the vote would have been somewhat closer when I look at this and what he did in the Eastern Conference. When you look at, I didn't break down who the voters were in the Eastern Conference, but he was dynamic all season long, although the team did falter and he did falter. And because of it, in the last 3 weeks to a month where Josi, and when you watch Nashville, Josi plays the game like a centerman. He's all over the ice. He's a 4-corner player. When you look at it for a defenseman, you're not really supposed to be a 2-corner player. But Josi, to me, was the Nashville Predators. When you think of the Washington Capitals, you're not necessarily just thinking of John Carlson. But I thought Josi would get it just for how the last month of the season went. that John, I don't know if he was banged up, but the team was not playing well, and they were very erratic in their game, and he looked tired at times, and they had to lean on him in every single situation at all times. So I certainly thought until say middle of January he was going to be the guy that hands down won that trophy, and I think every one of his teammates and most players in the leagues. But all of a sudden, you get that last month, and all of a sudden everyone's just talking about Roman Josi. So last night, I was watching the awards with some buddies, and I called every trophy, and I just thought Yossi's getting this one for sure, because when you do watch the Predators, he was all over the ice. He was everywhere.
Well, he needed to be everywhere because he didn't have that superstar dynamic around him like a Carlson or a Hedman. And we watch Point. He's terrific, and we don't even know what percentage he's playing at now, and Kucherov. But Josi with who? Matt Duchene and Ryan Johansson, and and Philip Forsberg, pretty good player, but not superstars, like pure world class, top of the heap superstars. No, Josi didn't have that.
No, and in Nashville, they tried to play a speed game the past few seasons prior to John Hines getting there, and they just don't have the horses to do that. They're not a fast team. So Josi really did have to carry the puck. He had to try and get it up and down the ice as much as he could. I thought maybe he did it too much at times, because whoever his partner was on the ice, it's a lot of times that you're facing an odd man rush against when Josi goes up and attacks the net. But Josi, he to me is the star of the Nashville Predators. I think Philip Forsberg's another guy that I look at, but he's not superstar, category yet. He's been a consistent player since he's gotten in the league, but Roman Josi is a bona fide superstar. Once again, this is one of those guys every single general manager in the league would take on their team. He'd be in the top pairing, and it'd be great to see him play with another guy, like get Shea Weber back there. I loved watching that team when they had all of those big defensemen going, and they're not quite the same team. They were built around defense before. Now when you think of the defense, you got Yossi's way up top, and then Ryan Ellis is next, Ekholm is there, and then the rest of the guys are, that's a team that needs to improve on the backside.
All right, we rounded out last night with the Vezina, the Calder, Makar taking it for the Rookie of the Year. Hellebuck, of course, for the Vezina. You're okay with that?
Absolutely. When you think of the Winnipeg Jets, Hellebuck was the guy when you're turning on the games. He's the guy that had to make a difference every single night. Their team just wasn't the same. Losing all those top-tier defensemen put him a lot more work. He played a ton of games. He was their MVP. So no surprise with that. When I look at all the awards, Cale Makar, absolutely phenomenal. So dynamic when you watch him play. And I thought, at the end of the year in the bubble, he looked exhausted. He was trying to do just a little too much, but that's part of the learning curve of playing in the National Hockey League. He does play a lot like Roman Josi. He will be one of the guys we're talking about in the next few years for the Norris Trophy. But I think hands down, Cale Makar had to win that trophy. Hellebuck, when you think around the National Hockey League, who really was that outstanding as him? And, Vasilevsky has a lot of firepower in front of him. Hellebuck had to win the games without the firepower most nights.
Okay, we're going to get into game one or game two of the Stanley Cup Final played last night, but I'm going to put you on the spot just on the awards before we change the topic here. I know it's been debated in the league office the last few years on whether or not we should look at these awards. And please, if you're on the comments, I want to hear what your comments are, and maybe we can get Jordan to read some a little later on in the show on whether or not you're a pure traditionalist or not when it comes to our awards. So I'm asking you, Alan May, do you keep the names as is, i.e. Norris, i.e. Hart, or is it time that the NHL now changes these over and brings up the next generation? Would you like to see the MVP award named after Wayne Gretzky? Would you like to see the Norris Trophy named after Bobby Orr? Is it time to update this? Alan, yes or no?
I'm a traditionalist in this, and I would love to see those players' names on the trophies. I think Wayne Gretzky's the greatest player of all time, and he proved it year after year with the numbers that he put up, how he dominated in both Los Angeles and certainly in Edmonton, in my hometown. But at the same time, we all know what these awards are. So I'm kind of tossed on it. But, with the new age of hockey and everyone catering and kind of pandering to the new fans and trying to grow the game, maybe it is time. But, then you go back, how many times did Bobby Orr win it? would Nick Lidstrom be the name that would go on that trophy? So it would just open up
Oh.
another can of worms. It would open up another can of worms on these trophies. And don't forget, those names that are on those trophies right now, they did help build this game.
I wonder how Bobby Orr would feel about that, getting skipped over one whole generation. So you're skipping, you're going from 0 to 2 with Lidstrom. But I would believe, Alan, that would also have be a difficult subject to bring up, because these are family names, right? Vezina, Hart, Norris, Calder. These were people, and these are families, and these are generations. That would be a tough conversation.
Hey, you know what? They did change all of the division names, though. We played in the Patrick, and then there was the Chuck Norris division, the Smythe, and all those. They did change all of those, and a lot of people wonder about the Campbell Conference and the Wales Conference, where they were. So they have changed a lot of the names around the league. So it could be justifiable, since the Capitals play in the Metropolitan Division, whatever that is. And you just look around, it would be an easy argument to make changes.
That's a great point. And sorry, I'm just not used to it on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays with Doug McLean. He's Alan May. I'm Nick Kypreos. It's a Real Kyper at Noon show. A reminder, if you put a bet in on blitzbet.eu, you are eligible for a Harley Davidson, Albie. I'm giving away a Harley at the end of the Stanley Cup final. Do you think maybe Ally Ifrate would like to upgrade his?
Well, I don't know how many he's got, but I'm definitely, anytime you can get a free Harley, everyone's up for it. I think any guy in the biker community would definitely wants one of those, and Big Al would just add it to the collection.
You got a quick Ally Ifrate biker story at all?
The funniest story is we came home from a road trip one night, and one afternoon, it was that we bus in from the airport and we go to the practice arena where we used to park our cars, and he used to drive, even though he had those Harleys, he had like a little Volkswagen Rabbit or a Golf or whatever they were, a little tiny car that he barely fit in. You remember?
Fit in.
Yeah, his head was stuffed over the steering wheel. It was hilarious to see that monster get out of that.
It was like watching Bubba Smith in those police academies when he has to rip out the seat to get in. Same thing with Ally Ifrate.
I just remember we came back from a road trip, and that thing was in the middle of the parking lot, and someone must have been a monster 4x4, ran into it a couple hundred times, because it was it was crushed up like a phone booth. It was a crushed can by the time we got back. And all he did was laugh. He just belly laughed. So I don't know whose girlfriend or whatever it was, what happened, why it happened, but it happened. It was one of the funniest things I've ever seen. I actually, nothing comes close to how bizarre that was.
Well, hopefully he's watching and he puts down as little as $1 bet, and he's eligible for a new Harley. Okay, let's get into it. Game 2, Alan. Power play surge by Tampa. It didn't look good on their first power play, and Kucherov had a tough 7 minutes to start. He was beat up. He was hit by Jamie Benn. He slid into the boards. We weren't even sure if he was going to come back. But
no,
did he look after the power play on those first two goals?
Yeah, they definitely had some different looks last night. Instead of forcing shots from his area, what they were playing is, everyone overplayed him. They were overplaying Hedman, who's had so much offensive success in these playoffs, and it opened up the middle of the ice. But, that's the great thing about the playoffs, is the amount of work that goes into breaking down the other team, cracking the code of what they were doing on the penalty kill. And the Stars, certainly, they had a lot of penalty kill time in game 1. You look at the other night, right off the bat, they're in the penalty box, and Tampa makes them pay. They started to work the plays down low, started to get the Stars to overcommit in certain areas, rather than just playing passive and tight and keeping it down low, maybe letting the long shot from distance and letting Khudobin see it, but they didn't. So Tampa made early work there, but still 5-on-5, to me, they're not doing enough. If you're just going to depend on the power play, you can bet that Dallas, that Rick Bowness will make sure that the next game that they are absolutely, they're cracking down, keeping the sticks, owning the middle of the ice again like they were in game 1.
Hard to imagine that Palat had so much time on his strong side wall to fire that puck in the empty net. And listen, you give Kucherov all the credit in the world for finding the seam, but how does that get by Cogliano and Janmark?
That's
lazy sticks on that one play. They slept on that one play.
Yeah, and it looked like there was a little fatigue setting in on that one. But when you look at how they're moving the puck around and everything that they're doing, Tampa, they roll it around the top very, very well. And going down to Palat on that side, a lot of times teams don't have that opportunity where they have an offhanded player. Usually you're looking at the one-time situation there. And I was thinking if Stamkos comes back, you definitely have to have him there firing one-timers.
I know we're celebrating the first day of fall and you're outside, but I mean, are you cutting the grass as well, Alan? What is going on back there?
I live in a townhouse. I guess it's the HOA.
I love
out
it.
There. Get out of here, guys.
Get the hedgers out, man.
Yeah.
Start working on the hedges.
I think it's the leaf blowers are gone.
Attaboy. That's okay. That's it's all part of live streaming here on the Real Kyper Show. Alan May, kind enough to join us, a great regular contributor here on the show, and no one breaks it down better than Alan May. One of the knocks that I've had, Alan, during these playoffs at times is to get two teams to play really well at the same time. And it seemed almost that last night it just didn't really jive all that well. I'm watching Dallas come in after a game 1 win, and in the first 15, 17 minutes, they got all but 2 shots on goal. And it just seemed that Tampa Bay, with their 3-0 win, was just going to steamroll them. They were so close to knocking Hudobin out of the game, and yet the game doesn't get decided to the very end. Credit Dallas, but it just seems like, again, the momentum swing from now, not even game to game, but it's almost from period to period, because Dallas came back with a fantastic second period, and Vasilevsky had to be all that more brilliant to preserve a lead.
Well, I think the reason that you're seeing all of this in these playoffs is that there's no home ice advantage. Last night would have been a home game for the Tampa Bay Lightning, and you get a power surge from your fans, and you can continue to carry on that momentum. But right now you're kind of playing within yourself, so you're not getting off kilter from just being so deafening, and the home team's fans, getting them on a roll and sustaining that momentum. So you're looking for little victories. So this is about being more mentally tough, more focused, more driven as an individual player right now, because the crowd noise is not going to set you off. It's not deafening. You and I have played in some incredibly loud playoff games, and you think of Madison Square Gardens in the playoffs, how loud their fans used to be, and you had to eliminate them with the early goal or a fight, or when that was allowed. There was just so many different ways to do it. Now you're just playing against your own momentum, your personal momentum. You're able to stay in focus and kind of stay in the moment, not get too rattled. And I think that's really why we've had a lot of these flip-flops in these games, is that teams can just stay so laser focused without all that extra crowd noise. There is an advantage to it.
Yeah, part of the appeal for me last night was the game within the game, and it was chippy, Albie. It was a game that the animosity, you could see it slowly building throughout the game, and it got a little ugly at time, and it's not a fast-paced game like we've seen in the past, and I'm okay with that. Sometimes the emphasis is so much on speed. But you know what happens with speed when it gets really, really fast? We end up watching this horrible chip and chase game. And it's almost like at times watching ping pong. And you could say, yeah, it's really fast, but it's really fast in and it's really fast out, and it's really fast in and it's really fast out. This one has a different feel to it. And we saw some really big hits last night, including a sequence late in the second period where McDonough hit Como really hard, and it ended up being a breakaway on one side and then a breakaway on the other side. I liked it last night, Alan. I liked that chippiness.
Well, you look at how Dallas started the very first game. Their opening shifts, they went after Point and Kucherov and nailed them. And they put on a physical statement. They had great sticks and lanes. They just kept throwing the puck below the goal line and pressuring. But Tampa, they did build their team. They did do a rebuild this season to add a lot more grit, a lot more toughness in the types of role players that they have. You look at Blake Coleman, having such an emphasis in these playoffs and being such a contributor when it comes to physical play and nudging with the other players. Cirelli is a great two-way player who depends on physicality. And when you look at what Victor Hedman, he's coming into every scrum, pushing and shoving guys.
Yeah.
He's trying to be more of an intimidator. And I thought one of the things that when I noticed last night is Joe Pavelski had enough of him coming in and always pushing everyone in these scrums and punched him in the back of the head. And that was kind of the frustration of who is Hedman all of a sudden doing these things. But you look at Chernak and everyone, there's an extra bump and a shove after every whistle. They're scrumming it up. And, between the whistles is still, the players are finishing in their hits and they're going after each other. When you can taste the Stanley Cup, when it's that close, you're doing everything possible to win a game. So Tampa's not giving up that edge right now physically. I thought Dallas got away from that early in the game last night, and they weren't using their skates enough to finish the body.
We could see a Stanley Cup decided on a bad penalty, a retaliation penalty. I would hope that it wouldn't be a chintzy call, but it would be one that you could definitely see, and I hope they have the balls to call it, because
that hit on McDonough, the hit McDonough threw on Como, that hit was called earlier in the game as an interference call, and I thought Como didn't touch that puck, and he got nailed, and he got hit high. So he's an unsuspecting player. So that's also one of those areas. So I just want the consistency. I'm not going to bellyache. I guess the penalty I like the most is the puck over the glass because it's the only cut and dry thing there is. And some of the too many men. But you definitely don't want to see a series decided on either of those different calls.
But when when we've lived this in a game, when your emotions are so high and it just takes a split second to make a bad decision, and we saw some retaliation penalties. Gord off a big hit by Alexiak. And then we saw, even Maroon shove, Hudobin in the net after being stopped on a partial breakaway. Those are penalties. You're going to go back into the dressing room. You're going to get shit over by the coaches and maybe some of your veteran teammates.
Well, you have to take that with Gord a little bit. And there's two more names of Tampa players that play the game physical and with an edge every night. Gord is in it. He's a pest. He's kind of a rat out there, but he's a high-skill player as well and has worked his way into the National Hockey League. Pat Maroon getting into the grill of the Dallas Stars MVP, to me, is Hudobin. When we're talking about the Stars right now, it's Hudobin. Every night we're talking about how great he's been, how he's keeping his teams in these games. Couldn't fault him on the goals last night. And I just look at maybe Maroon, maybe there was something to what he did, but you certainly don't want to take penalties in the offensive zone. But then again, you don't want to take penalties anywhere. So to me, the biggest thing is Tampa's trying to play with an edge, and they're trying to frustrate the Stars, and it's working at times because you see some of the penalties from Dallas. They have been kind of retaliatory or whatever you want to call it, or going back at, but that definitely is something that Tampa has focused on this season.
I got to think it's not a bad loss for Dallas, especially the fact that they didn't come out with much emotion in the first period, and yet they found a way to make a game of it. I got to think that it's a decent feeling for Dallas right now to be at 1-1 going into game 3. That they not only they came in, Allen, as the underdogs, we know that, but there's got to be a better feeling for Dallas after a couple of games now.
Well, they know there's a lot of things they can correct last night. What was driving me nuts is they wouldn't shoot the puck, and I think Radulov, one of the most important guys when it came to that aspect of the game, they had point-blank shots. I still think it's important to fire pucks when you're in tight, getting them into the goaltender's feet, creating those scrums. When you're in tight, you got to go top right. You got to get it up top and look for those opportunities rather than looking for the seam top, or I call it the laptop hockey pass across the seam all the time, looking for one-timers. You still have to get rubber to the net. It creates power play opportunities for mad scrambles, the chaos that ensues right after that. So you look at Dallas, there's no way that they should be demoralized from that, but they know that there's correctable areas. Work on the penalty kill. That's got to be better. They have to have different looks, and making sure that when there is the chance to shoot the puck and get to the inside of the ice somewhat more. And on the other side of it, they owned the middle of the ice. And I know that Tampa in game 1 in the third period, I think the shots were 20-2, mostly perimeter shots, no layers of Tampa Bay Lightning near the net. And if there was only one at a time, and Hudobin was able to handle those because they weren't going up top when they were in tight, when they did find those rebounds. So everything's correctable to me for the Stars to come out and have another good performance in the third game.
I want to get your thoughts a little bit on Tyler Seguin because there's so much heat in terms of lack of offense. And yeah, when you're paid close to $10 million a year, it's the numbers. That's all anybody ever cares about. You don't hear it as much when they win. And I got to tell you, Alan, I don't mind his game. And I know that in all probability, if they do lose the Stanley Cup, Dallas, and he's sitting on a couple of goals, it will be a factor. It always is with the best players on the team. But when it comes to the middle of the ice, he has a pretty good control of it when he's out there. And I think he's playing it probably as well as he can without scoring. We do know he's not at 100%. We knew that coming into the bubble. But man, oh man, this guy just needs a couple of bounces, I think, and he's on his way. What are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, when a player's not scoring and his team's in the finals, that's still all right. They're doing all the other little things. I've never seen him block shots before. We're seeing that out of him. Finishing hits, never seen so much of that out of him as well. And when I look at Seguin, he obviously has hobbled somewhat because the speed that he normally plays the game with isn't quite there. He doesn't have a breakaway gear right now. But I like all of his game. And I know when the Capitals won their Stanley Cup 2 seasons ago, or whenever that was, it feels like a decade ago now, but there were players like Lars Eller, Devontae Smith-Pelly, Brett Connolly. Players were chipping in, Andrei Burakovsky, Jacob Vrana, guys that weren't necessarily counted on. You think of Ovechkin, you think of Kuznetsov, Oshie, Tom Wilson scored goals in that playoff series. So you have to get it from around the horn. You can't just be a one-line team. But at some point, I do expect Seguin to get on the board because he is going after it. His shot doesn't seem, to me, last night on a couple of his shots in the power play, it looked like he was contorting his body. It's almost to the point there wasn't a lot on the shots to think maybe there's something going on in the upper body situation that he can't whip that puck, that he can't pull the back scratcher on his one-timer or put as much into it. But you know it's there. He will get his opportunities. I expect him in the next couple of games to break out of this.
You also expect now a long series?
Absolutely. And I thought it was just going to go 7 games before we got into this series. And I just look at Dallas, when you depend on defense so much and the middle of the ice, and I look at their players on D, everyone is doing an incredible job. You look at Klingberg and 23. Oh, God, I should know his name. Lindell. Where's my old jersey? And I look at Heiskanen,
yes,
Oleksiak, Sekera, even Joe Hanley, how well they're playing and as a group. And then the team defense, the size of all those Finnish players that play the game with speed, Gurianov on the fourth line. When you look at, everything they're doing, they just got to get back to their game. But I do expect the firepower of Tampa to keep, going after them, and Dallas to wait for those opportunities to score goals.
Alan, I got to tell you, man, I got a whole new respect for Klingberg. I never knew how tough he was. I never knew how he could withstand a lot of punishment and just hold his own. I played with Sergei Zubov. I won a Stanley Cup with him in 1994. And of course, he went on to have a great career in Dallas as well, ended up in the Hall of Fame. And I watched Klingberg, and he reminds me so much of Zubov and his ability to hold on to the puck, the high tolerance for bending but not breaking to the point where it's going to be a giveaway or he's going to make a wrong choice. And you can't rattle this guy, Alan. He is that good, and he would be mentioned a lot in Norris's, I think, if he played in a bigger market, at least if not somewhere in the East or in Canada. This guy would get the accolades that I think he probably deserves up until this point.
Well, you have to respect his offense when you're a forechecker or you're on the attack, that what he can do with the puck. You can never tell if he's going to take a shot in the offensive zone or make a pass. He gets the puck to the net very well, walks the line incredibly well. He's got,
which we saw on both goals, goals to get Dallas back into it.
Yeah, and so much agility in his skates. He's not a speedster. He's very elusive when he's out there. He can escape the forecheck. But I really think Todd Nelson, their defensive coach, and even Rick Bowness, when you add it, and Jim Montgomery's got something to do with this as well, is the uptick in his game in the all-round department defensively is way better than it's been, because he was kind of a gunslinger before when he was out there. And, it was all about the offense. Now he's playing an overall game. He's tough below the goal line. He's doing things in front of net. And those are all things that you have to focus on. And coaching will teach players that what they need to focus on. You know, if it's something that you were never aware of in your game because everyone is so focused on your offense before, it's not going to be something that you get better at. And I just look at him. He's not their best defenseman. Heiskanen is, but Klingberg is phenomenal. And once again, he's one of those players. Could you imagine him on the Leafs power play, moving the puck around up top? I think he's superior to Morgan Rielly and all those aspects on the power play because of the way the shot can get through to the front of the net, the deception on the passes to either flank. Just a really clean hockey player, the way he moves everything out there.
Well, and he got it going with the Pavelski redirect. And just on that note, Pavelski, 10th goal of the playoffs, I think, and just his ability to do what he did all those years in San Jose. If you watch that first goal, I don't think you can cover a guy any better than Ryan McDonagh did, and yet he finds a way to get that stick out and get pucks on net. And he is as good as he's ever been when it comes to commanding that type of that touch and the attention that he gets, and he's still finding a way to get it done. It's phenomenal to watch him in front of the net, Alan.
You know, he's a heady hockey player, but what happened to the Wild West of the 80s when you could horse collar a guy like that or break your stick on his back and not get a penalty? But, you know, it's so hard to play a player in front of the net now because you can't do all those little things. The way they used to lift the stick, if you touch the gloves now, it's an automatic penalty. And they call that. And, you know, back, I remember having times on the power play where Randy Carlyle would hold my stick the entire time. And the only way to get it out of his stick was to punch him in the throat or something like that. So he'd have a reaction. But for Pavelski, he's such an incredibly intelligent player out there because I look at him and I'm going, this guy looks so slow, but he has the puck. He knows all the right moves, how to protect it. He's tough on the wall. He goes to the front of the net. He's got soft hands. The stick is always ready to shoot or find someone on the back door for a nice, you know, just pop over pass. So Pavelski, everyone, including myself, didn't think this was going to work out. And right now it's paying so many dividends in the playoffs for what he's been able to do with them. And, you know, if he could win a Stanley Cup with these guys, I think it would be absolutely phenomenal. But he's been such a key contributor. On the other side of that, I'd like to see a little more out of Corey Perry. He doesn't have legs anymore. It looks like, you know, he's flopping all over the ice at all times. He
the
still
headlock. You didn't like the headlock on Paquette late in the second period?
But you want to see some touch out of him near the net, you know, get some of that back. You know, it seems like in Anaheim, he was always getting those deflection goals, but he can't quite get there right now. And he's another player. If you get just a touch more out of him, it makes all the difference in the world. And Pavelski definitely is in a great rhythm right now. What he's doing on the power play, there's so many different looks that he can provide for you, but he doesn't give it up an inch for how slow he appears to be. I don't know if he is slow, but it's just, you know, he's got the legs, he's got a purposeful stride, but he doesn't really, you know, fly all over the ice, but he gets so many positive things done and accomplished when he's out there. He's just an incredibly valuable player for the Stars right now.
I'm Nick Kypreos. He's Alan May, and you're watching Outdoor Gardening with Alan May. So far we've had a leaf blower, we've had the lawnmower, and I think it was a sprinkler system. I think
it's been the leaf blowers and some jets.
It is
flying in down the Potomac.
Gardening tips? Do you have any advice for the listeners?
You know what? Just pay the guys. I got nothing.
How's it looking? So you are in Georgetown, right?
Yes.
In Maryland, and of course,
Washington D.C.
Washington D.C. One of my favorite areas. You introduced me to Georgetown, by the way, and are the bars and the restaurants and the scenery as good as I ever remembered it?
It's completely different from what it used to be. It's a lot more commercial going up and down Wisconsin or M Street. All the big name high-end boutique stores are there. The bars and restaurants are kind of disappearing. There's still a few good ones, but it's not like it used to be. And, you know, I'm much older than the crowd that is still down in that area right now. I'm not a college student, so I don't frequent those places. And but it's still an amazing city. It's completely changed. And the last time you and I had dinner in town, it was downtown where we never used to meet and hang out. And it's filled with incredible steakhouses and restaurants down there. But right now they're all closed. Yeah. So it's not like you can do much.
And our practice facility, when I first got traded there, was in Virginia. And,
Mount Vernon, Virginia. And it was I still have to go over there for the odd appearance. And I can't believe an NHL team used to practice in a place like that. And I walked in, I think it was our dressing rooms, what used to be our dressing rooms. These players nowadays, they would not know what hit them if they saw that compared to,
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Can you imagine the look on their face if they ever walked into our practice facility?
Oh, you just look at the weight room was in a building, a portable building outside, and it was just a bunch of old rickety machines.
But we had Frank Costello, buddy.
Yeah, well, the greatest storyteller of all time for strength coaches, and just a phenomenal human. So you got more talk out of him than you did out of that. And then we moved to that other arena in the middle of nowhere, in a farmer's field or whatever it was. And Boss Hogg used to be trying to give us speeding tickets on that old dirt road.
On Highway 50.
Yeah, it was like we were the one team in the NHL that didn't play in a city.
What was it? Pinehurst or
Piney Orchard?
Piney Orchard.
Yeah.
Piney Orchard. That's right. And I drove up to practice one day with Ally Ifrate in his little mini car or whatever, and the glove box opens up when he hits a speed bump, and like 20 parking tickets come out, and I start reading these, and it's like driving with no license, driving without insurance, driving without headlights on, driving with earphones on. You got a ticket for that. And I'm like, Al, wasn't there one cop that gave you a break on any of these tickets? And he says, what cops? I got all those on when I got pulled over once. I'm like, oh my God. Stick to your Harley, buddy. Stick to your Harley. Okay, Alan, let's keep it local here. And we got to talk about your Washington Capitals. Of course, they didn't hesitate. Like they said they were going to go get an experienced coach. We mentioned the names, of course, of Babcock, Laviolette, Gerard Gallant. And yet, what are your thoughts on Peter ending up with the job?
Well, this was a two-horse race right from the start. It was Babcock or Laviolette. And I think it came down, to fitting the contract in, because the Capitals have never really paid a coach. Barry Trotz was the highest paid coach, and I think he almost doubled his salary at like $1.5 million when he got here. Laviolette, I believe for the older players, and last time I was on, I mentioned it, is you had to do this for Ovechkin, for Backstrom, for Karlsson, for Oshie. Have a coach that they respect, that had been there and done a lot of things as a head coach in the National Hockey League, that they knew had a track record of, sitting players out, getting stiff with the players, but still being, a dominant coach. And Laviolette's only got a 3-year contract. I think that was, highly intelligent of the team to go that way, because in 3 years, what's going to be left of Ovechkin and Backstrom? And Oshie, he could be on the Seattle Kraken by then. John Karlsson will be 33, 34 years old. They'll be near the end of their runs. And so you want to get as much out of this group in this short period of time as possible. The Caps, looking at their roster, they're a little too old right now. But you need to have a coach that can get players and push their buttons. And I've seen Laviolette do that. And Carolina wins a cup right off the bat. Philadelphia gets them to the finals right away. Nashville, second year in, gets them into the finals. And he just knows how to get his team going. There's a lot of star power here. I think that'll help him as well. He's not going to have to worry so much about the power play. That thing kind of takes care of itself. But it's important that this team have the respect of the guy behind their bench. And you want to see players that if they're not going, aren't getting ice time. And I've seen Laviolette do that over the course of his career. I was hoping it was going to be he or Babcock. And, Babcock takes a lot of heat. He hasn't ever come out and, defended himself from a lot of the accusations. But I still love the brand of hockey that he coached. As far as, right now, I think the Washington Capitals had a coach like that valued getting the puck to the net, had bodies at the front of that, that values puck battles. He could have done an incredible job. And I feel over the Ovi era, I think Tortorella and Babcock, specifically Joel Quenneville, but I think those first two names probably could be on, the third or fourth Cup Finals appearance. You need luck, you need health to win it. But I think rather than just, this one time during Ovi's tenure and only one time out of the second round, I think it would have been important to have a coach that was really stiff and a disciplinarian and aggressive with the players to get them there. I think Laviolette is more, maybe can relate from being a pro hockey player for so long, for being a pro coach for 18 years as a head coach in the National Hockey League. I think the respect is there. Systematically, I believe that the changes that he'll make here, 5-on-5 play has to be way better. They were too soft. They were too easy to play against, a little too methodical on the perimeter. and how they went about the league the last couple of years and those first round exits. So I look at Laviolette. He's a great choice for this team. He's done a lot. The wins are way up there as far as all-time career leaders. But I still believe there's a passion for him to coach and to push his players to get to the next level. And the Capitals desperately needed, I think, a voice that's been there and done that before.
Is there a sense, maybe in terms of the relationship already? How involved was Ovechkin in this? How much do you think Peter's worried? Not worried, but needs to kind of show that it's going to be. I not that I got to be careful with Ovechkin, but he's the key in this. He's the tone setter here. So I'm gonna have to pay more attention to our relationship.
Has Laviolette ever had a player as great as Ovechkin? Like that, he's got the number one sniper in hockey on his team. Is it,
Not when he went to the finals.
I'll say the second greatest team, the second greatest goal scorer ever in the National Hockey League, Alexander Ovechkin. I haven't conceded it. He's got to get more goals than Gretzky to be the greatest of all time. But when you have a player like Ovechkin, it's a dream for a coach. I don't think they're going to butt heads. Ovi had nothing to do with the coach getting fired. The general manager knew and probably saw it last year that they needed to make a change. And the big thing here is you have to get the respect and the command of your top players. So I think that Ovechkin, from what I've seen over the course of time, he's done whatever the coaches have asked, no matter what they are and what they're doing. And I think that's critically important.
And is it a foregone conclusion that you've got a deal done with Ovechkin, and whether or not it needs to match up with Backstrom's contract or not? Or is it, you hear some things, Alan, and it's like, no, it's not that easy of a contract. The guy wants $12 million. He's been pissed at escrow for the last 3 or 4 years. He wants to make up for a little bit of that money. He's gonna want his 12 plus.
Well, maybe what Ovechkin should do is I would pay him. I think it's one of the players you have to maybe. I don't know where the results are going to be, but then again, he did lead the league in goal scoring this year. He deserves a max cap hit. I don't think it should be incumbent on the players to take a shave all the time on what they get paid. There are other ways to make him whole, but maybe he signs a 2-year contract and the next time the cap goes up, he takes another max cap hit. There's ways to do it. General managers always find ways to get rid of players, to open up the books. I think, expansion will be huge in opening up some of the dollars for this team. You've got a lot of older defensemen right now that won't be here in a couple of years, but I think the most important thing is you have to take care of Alexander Ovechkin, no matter what the noise on the outside says about overpaying older players. This guy deserves it. He built that area around the arena, and all the bars and restaurants are full. It's completely different from what it used to be from when you and I played. That was a war zone. Now it's a safe place to go out. Incredible nights to watch hockey. That arena's always packed, and it's all about Alexander Ovechkin doing that.
So if we stick by your words, they're going to find a way for Ovechkin, but they're not going to find a way for Holtby. And as deserving as you think he might be after delivering a Stanley Cup, he just won't get his money there.
Well, they have a I'm not going to call him a superstar yet because he's only had one season in the National Hockey League, but
Okay. And of course he's talking about Samsonov, and not to put words in Alan's mouth, but he did mention that Ovechkin's still at top of his game and scoring and leading the league in goals, and Holtby's leaving with a much different feel. And I think that's abundantly clear that if they feel like they can go cheaper and still get a guy like Samsonov who can come in and perhaps be at a certain level, that might be enough to get them over the hump. So Holtby's going to have to leave. But what's really difficult, I think, at times for Capital fans is watching a guy that found a way to deliver after all these years and not be a part of the team moving forward. And of course, the other guy we're talking about, and maybe Holtby in Washington, is no different than Alex Pietrangelo in St. Louis. And in terms of another guy that delivered for the hometown, a guy that got the job done, a guy that said, I did my job, now you do your job, and you sign me. And it's not there for Alex Pietrangelo, and a lot of people are upset. And what should have been probably, a quieter negotiation, and up until this part, you didn't hear a lot. Of course, we talked about Pietrangelo having some issues in terms of St. Louis not being able to sign him. But yet, the feeling was that there was ongoing talks. So I know Darren Drager mentioned, 3 days ago, that talks broke off. We do believe that there is a contract on the table for Alex Pietrangelo, and it will remain on the table. And I can tell you the number that I heard was $8 million times 8. So if one of the issues was maxing out his contract, he got it. It's on the table by St. Louis. They will give him 8 years, and they will give him $8 million a year for a grand total of $64 million. $64 million. But the question is, how do you like that 64? Well, I want it up front. I want a huge signing bonus. And in year 5, 6, or 7, I don't want to be bought out. And I probably don't want to be in a position to get traded as well. Has Alex Pietrangelo earned that, delivering a Stanley Cup? Yeah, many would say yeah. And in the past, many have been rewarded for that. But not many have been in a situation where, unfortunately for Alex, the timing couldn't be worse. Pandemic, a cap that has not been moving up even prior to the pandemic, and now that's locked in, and we don't know how long it's going to be locked in. We don't even know if it's guaranteed. I know that they've come to this meeting of the minds between the players and the owners on an extension on the CBA, but we don't know whether or not the owners would come back to the players and say, hey, I need a $65 million salary cap, or else we're not playing next year. I don't know what that does, but it's not guaranteed.
So we're trying to get Alan back in. I think his signal froze up. We put a call back into him right now, but we shall see how that goes. For the
you know what I think,
here.
Jordan? I think it was the lawnmower. I think it was the lawnmower. I think maybe the cable got snapped.
You know what? If all else fails, I feel like we learned a lot about just what it takes to keep a property in good shape. You got to be out there with the leaf blower. You have to have the sprinklers, the jets flying above. So we're closing up at the end of the show today. We got about 10 minutes left anyway. So we'll see if our friend Albie could come back in. If not, we always appreciate his time massively. And
listen, it was a great effort to honor the first day of fall officially. Yeah. He goes outside. We got a lovely view of his building, and then lo and behold, it's Tuesday, man. Yeah. That's when they cut the grass there in his building.
When you mentioned it, that's what live streaming is. Stuff happens.
I love it. Honest.
It's that
I love
real, authentic feel that we offer here on the Real Kyper at Noon show.
That's the beauty.
Yep.
That's the beauty of live streaming. I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yep.
So all of you still watching and listening, this is what it's all about. It's just it's us anyways, right? When it's all said and done, whether it's Alan or Doug, but the most important thing is you're all still here. You're all connected. Jordan, you want to throw a couple of questions out there?
I threw out earlier. The show, I think.
I threw out a couple of questions in terms of the awards, whether or not it's time to shed the old names and bringing some of the next generation names. Would you like to see a Gretzky named after the MVP award now moving forward? I don't know. I'm sure a lot of our watchers and listeners are younger than me. How would they feel about that?
Well, hey, let me tell you something about how I feel, right? Which is the only thing that matters. I think it's tough to have these names and it not be completely clear what the award is. For me, admittedly, everyone here knows I'm a big sports guy, but I'm doing my best to learn hockey. I'm spending my time trying to learn the history and everything, the teams, the players, the off-season stuff. It could be a little confusing to some, but most of our listeners think they want to leave the name. Our friend Tim says leave the names. Shane says keep the names. Having some old traditions is good. And then the conversation changes a little bit to the types of awards that are there. Do we think that we should have some more defensive awards here? Like our friend DR Hockey said, the NHL should have an award for best offensive defenseman and best defensive offenseman. I think is kind of what he was saying there.
Yeah, and the Norris is supposed to be both, to be quite frank, and that's in a nutshell. But we've seen traditionally it has gone to high offense octane. You put up numbers, and we saw Carlson lead the league with 75, and Coffey's holds many records. Bobby Orr, many records. Carlson in San Jose, when he's at the top of his Norris wins, he's leading the league in points. And unfortunately, it's kind of been labeled that way. But I also played, and Alan May is my teammate in Washington. We had a guy that won Norris's playing shutdown hockey in Rod Langway. And I don't think that there was anybody in the league in the last 40 or 50 years was as good as Rod Langway when it come down to completely shutting down the door on defense, man. Secretary of Defense, that was Rod Langway. And I wouldn't mind at all seeing a defensive award, stay-at-home defenseman, whatever you want, protect the house. I think it would be wonderful. I think it would be great if we saw a major award handed out to the guy that doesn't have to have flash racing up the ice. The game is about shutting down, too. It might not be as pretty. It might not be as entertaining, but there is a place for it, and we're seeing it out of the Dallas Stars as well. When we see a guy like Alexiak, Lindell, who don't have the flash of Heiskanen and Klingberg, but equally as important. So great question, Jordan.
Yeah, thank you. Did you ever do any voting on awards, Kip, in your media
I did.
days?
Yes. Yeah. I was invited the last 5 years. I voted on the Hart. I voted on the Calder. I voted on the Vezina. And then when I stepped away from Sportsnet, because I knew that I was taking a year off, that I wasn't going to watch as much hockey, that it was best left to the guys that worked it on a daily basis. But I took that very seriously. It's something that you really got to think long and hard on and really understand, I guess, and it's always debatable, Jordan. We're always going to be in a position, I think, to question it, and that's okay. Debate's good. It's healthy as long as it's coming from a good place where you're putting a lot of thought into it. Mm-hmm. Of course, it's about preference too, what you find important, what you don't find important. And, we spoke of the analytics now and how they can come in and play into a certain role on not getting caught up by Leon Draisaitl's 110 points and where is he defensively. I think there's, like I said on the top of the show, there's an argument to be said on any of that.
Yeah.
That you can find warts. And Alan said that too as well on the show. It's what are you looking for? Mm-hmm. When it comes to watching a big, strong, smart centerman control a lot of the offense, that was enough for a lot of people to say that's my MVP. So we'll see where it goes from here on in. Perhaps we've got too many writers involved in all of this. Well, maybe they should narrow it down a little bit more.
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you think there's actually value in like some of these awards actually, or maybe there's more awards going forward that it's your peers that decide it, right? The guys that are there in the trenches with them every single game. Like I actually think that those are really interesting because you get kind of a feel for what like the players think of some.
Yeah, but the problem with that, Joe, is that not all the players will take it seriously. At the end of the day, they look at themselves and say, hey, some of them don't watch, to be quite honest with you. Sure. Like you can play against a guy 3 or 4 or 5 times and you can have a great perception of him because you're, as Mark Messier said, looking him in the eye and going shoulder to shoulder. But what are you doing for the other 72 games that he's playing? They don't feel like many of them want that responsibility when it comes to such prestigious awards, right? So I don't know whether or not we can do that past the Ted Lindsay, to be quite honest with you. And Alan again made an interesting point on the Norris and having other defensemen vote on it, but not everybody will be as engaged as Mark Scheifele. Mark Scheifele lives and breathes hockey on and off the ice and around the league. That guy knows everything about everyone on every team. But there's not, and if Mark Scheifele was voting, I'd have no problem at all with it.
Yeah.
But
I think that's the thing, right?
But not everybody's like that.
In theory, I think that sounds great, Joe, doesn't it? Like, it's like the spirit of the game and capturing what it really means. But I think a lot of those guys would kind of just shove it off and say, hey, I'm busy today. I know for the NBA All-Star game, they do a lot of coaches replacement stuff. That's all done by the assistant coaches and not like the main assistant, like the assistant's assistant. So I don't know. Just one thing I was thinking about, and we'll close the show up on this, I think.
Yes.
Earlier in the show, I think you were talking about Jonathan Willis from the Athletic CA, right? He is the person that has been kind of villainized the most for his Hart ballot. So just to go off what he said, he's from the Athletic Canada, but he had Leon number 1, then he had Panarin number 2, he had Hellebuck number 3, and Pasternak number 4.
Jordan, I don't think that was it. There was somebody else that got to vote.
Okay.
That didn't have Leon Draisaitl at all in the top 5.
Okay, so this guy didn't have MacKinnon or McDavid, and I think and Twitter is going crazy about that.
Well,
now.
there's always going to be, and I just said it. Debates are fun, but I don't know in good conscience how you could keep a Draisaitl or a MacKinnon off a top 5. I get it that you can always find reasons, but that to me is beyond anything I would want in a voter. Again, if you're going to look for stuff, you're going to look for stuff. But that to me is not justified or fair that those guys, and it's the eye test, man. We watch these guys every night. They had top 5 seasons, and to not be acknowledged by certain people, I just think is wrong.
Yeah. I will also say that for this Hart voting thing, there was 170 ballots. I find that to be a little bit intense. Just me looking at the results right now, I had to zoom in, put it on full screen. It's pretty intense to have that many people voting.
And I just mentioned about the players, not all of them pay attention. And I will say to this, because I've been involved in the voting process, you do know of writers who admit, and I don't know if they've done it publicly, but I don't watch all the games out west. I don't want to stay up till 1:30 in the morning and watch, Drew Doughty every night. So there's always that element of it not being perfect. So we'll just deal with it. I don't think it's something that needs to be addressed. It's not like it's completely fallen off the rails, but there are certain aspects of it, I think, that are kind of becoming more not problematic, but it's coming to the surface a little bit more the last few years about maybe things that might need tweaking.
Mm-hmm. Well said, man. That's all I got for today, unless you have anything else you want to get into.
No, that's it. Our apologies, first of all, that we lost Alan, but certainly got enough of his take in Game 2, which should set us up for a fun Game 3 tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Eastern, puck drop. We thank Alan for stepping in. We do get Doug McLean back tomorrow. I'm sure he's going to have a field day ripping on Alan May's outdoor issues. But we'll find issues to rip on Doug as well. So thank you, everybody, for once again joining me on the Real Kyper at Noon show. Hit the like button one last time for Alan May, even though we lost him a little early in the segment. And by all means, if you're a first-time watcher, please subscribe. Love having people come on a daily basis and join in what we think is fun, authentic hockey talk. And Jordan, nothing more authentic than losing your guests on a live stream and finding ways to keep the show going. But for all of you joining us, thanks again for being here, and we'll see you tomorrow. Have a great night.